All right, everybody. Good morning. Happy Monday. We have made it to the start of the week and we have made it to draft week. We're just a few days away now, and we're going to mix things up a little bit this morning with a different kind of mock draft. And I've done this before. I don't think I've done it in a couple years, but I thought it'd be fun to bring this one back because we've done enough normal mock drafts. And I did the dream mock draft a couple days ago, so we're going to be doing the opposite. We're going to be doing a nightmare mock draft. So that's going to be what today's video is about. And what I would say to the viewers out there is this is all in good fun. I don't know if there really is a mock draft nightmare that I could do that is really a nightmare, but we're having a little bit of fun now. So this video is sponsored by Prize Picks. More on them a little bit later. But the idea is, what are the things that the Seahawks can do that it seems like are at least somewhat possible that I really don't want to see? And understand, this is not like previous years. This year, we're talking about a bad draft when we have bad picks and only have 4 of them anyway, and we just won the Super Bowl. There's really no nightmare mock draft I can put together. Even if I don't like any of the picks at all, it's not going to really bother me that much. It'll bother me some, and I'll certainly acknowledge the fact that I don't like what they did, but it's very different compared to, like, I remember I did this video a few years ago when we had the 4 picks in the top 52 or whatever it was, and we had the top 5 pick and the top 20 pick. That was a year where missing in the draft would have been devastating because we had a ridiculous amount of capital and we had so much that we needed to do. So having a nightmare mock draft in a year like 2020, that was 2023. Yeah, that's one thing. You're not really going to have a nightmare mock draft in this year because I'm not saying that there's nothing good that you can do, but I recognize that the path to success is much more narrow. So we're going to go through this, but just keep in mind, there's not really any malice here. There's just an understanding that there are some things I'm not into. And that's what happens when you spend this much time talking about a draft. You find things you don't like so much. So let's go ahead and dive into my nightmare mock draft. Round 1. This was tough, but I ended up going with a guy that we may very well end up with, which is a little unfortunate. But I went with Jadarian Price. And here's what I can say about the Jadarian Price thing. If we get him, it's fine, but I really don't want to get him at 32. To me, getting Jadarian Price at 32 is the definition of just fill the hole with whatever is there. And that mentality is what led us to drafting Germain Ifedi. That mentality is what led to us drafting LJ Collier. And we were not happy with any of those things. Now, sometimes you have a clean union of value and need, like Charles Cross. But when you don't have that, you are just crossing your fingers and hoping that the player ends up being as valuable as you need them to be. And I look at Jadarian Price and I see a player that wasn't super productive in college, that was the second back behind a much better running back in Jeremiah Love, that isn't great on third down, that isn't that fast, that isn't powerful, and that has a little bit of a fumble concern. How is that worth a first round pick? I don't see it. Do you like sports? If you do, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players' projections and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. I've had a great time using Prize Picks so far. It makes this daily fantasy thing so easy and fun, and it even makes watching the games way more exciting. And with the cool social feeds feature, you can share lineups with your friends and even follow partners to tail or fade their picks. Obviously, we're in the NFL offseason right now, but we've got basketball, baseball, hockey, all kinds of other stuff, so don't be afraid to test things out in whatever sport clicks with you. You can even pick multiple sports in the same lineup and sweat everything at once. And don't forget about team picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So, Download Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And don't forget, code HMA, that is HMA, gives you $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. So if we get Price, let's say we trade back to the middle of the second and we get Price. Okay, that seems reasonable. Even if it's early in the second, I can kind of get behind it. But if I'm going to take Jadarian Price, a relatively underwhelming prospect in my mind, with my top pick, I want to get something extra out of it. If we draft Price at 32, that to me is a very strong sign that we are just drafting for need. And I think that's bad. And I don't think Price is a bad prospect. There are positive things about him for sure. But if we come away with him at 32, I'm not going to love that. Again, won't be furious, but I won't love it. By the way, the other player I thought about doing here is Cassius Howell, or I struggle with that name, Cassius Howell, the Texas A&M edge. But the difference there is I think Howell's good. He's just not a fit for our defense. But the thing is, if we draft him, I would assume that McDonald was okay with it and signed off on it and believes that he can work with Howell. So that might make me just go, well, maybe I don't understand what McDonald wants. And I don't think taking Howell at 32 is that bad. So I ended up going with this one, but Cassius Howell in a different way would be kind of a nightmare to me as well. Okay, second round pick is going to be Romello Height of Texas Tech, an edge rusher. Kind of being valued somewhere around this range of the draft. And to me, first of all, I don't think he's a fit because he's another one of these speed-only, smaller, leaner edge rushers that doesn't really hold the edge, that doesn't really play the run. They're just out there to try to win with their speed. And that doesn't really fit our defense. But even if it did, I'm not super into what Romello is doing out there. I don't think it's going to work very well. I'm not super optimistic about him having success, even if he's allowed to just hunt the quarterback with his speed. So even on that level, I'm not into it. Like a guy like Howell, who we just talked about, yeah, he's kind of just a speed guy. He's just a pure pass rusher. But I think he could be pretty good at that. I think he could actually have a really successful career just hunting quarterbacks with speed. But I look at Romello and I see a guy who I'm not even sure he's going to be able to do that. And that's probably all he's going to be able to do. So even if I'm incorrect about what McDonald wants with an edge rusher, I don't think Romello Height is the right guy. Okay, so third round pick now is going to be Will Lee the third, the cornerback from Texas A&M. Talked about him a little bit during the scouting process. There just isn't really a lot I like here, except for the ball skills. I think he's got legitimate ball skills, but everything else is like, I don't think his zone instincts are that great. I don't think he's very athletic. He's a little overly physical. I just look at Will Lee the third and I think to myself, I don't think he's a fit, but even beyond that, I think this is a pretty deeply flawed player. And other than his notable ball skills, and he does have a lot of ball production in his career, don't get me wrong, I do not see him being a very good pro. And he's not somebody, and he is being valued somewhere around the back end of the third right now. I just don't see him as being somebody worthy of a pick there. I think he's a fourth rounder at best, and maybe not in this defense either. Again, I want to be clear here. I am granting McDonald and Schneider a lot of get out of jail free cards right now because they have done so well. So if they took a player that I didn't think fit our team, then I would just assume that they know something about the player that I don't, or they know something about the scheme that I don't. Like if they take Romello Height, I might initially say, well, maybe we just want one of those kind of pure speed rushers. But then I would say, I don't even know if I like Height that much, even on that level. But when I look at Will Lee, I see a guy who has a lot of flaws running through him the whole way. Okay, so that is the third rounder. Finally, our sixth rounder, I'm going with Max Llewellyn, edge rusher from Iowa, just a guy that I didn't see anything with. Not really an athlete. He's not really that big. He gets pushed around. Like, there's really not a ton to be into there. And look, don't get me wrong. The whole concept here is kind of a the concept of a nightmare pick in the 6th round is silly in and of itself. There's nothing you're going to do in the 6th round that actually upsets people, right? Unless you draft a player that has like massive personal off-field issues and you just feel icky because now you have to root for that player. You're not going to get mad about a 6th round pick no matter what it is, but in the context of trying to conjure up this nightmare, Max Llewellyn would be a guy that I just don't think has any NFL future because I don't feel like he's really bringing much to the table. So, yeah, that would be kind of my nightmare mock draft. And again, I want to stress, nightmare is, don't take it literally, right? This is just a scenario that is somewhat possible that I would not like very much. But I'm not going to be upset about anything in this draft unless we do something completely absurd, which we're not going to do, right? Like I could do a mock draft nightmare where we take a punter in the 1st round, but we're not going to do that because nobody does that. Well, almost nobody does that. And even if some teams did do that, the Seahawks wouldn't do that. We're talking about things that could actually happen in theory. So, yeah, that is my nightmare mock draft for 2026. Again, de-emphasize the word nightmare. Just understand this is just something that I'm not super into. And also understand that this team deserves the benefit of the doubt right now. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Everybody have a great rest of your day. More videos coming soon. We got a few more, actually just, I think, 2 more eval videos, and then we are wrapped for the 2026 pre-draft process. Go Hawks.